for organizing this lecture today. In fact, it's not a lecture for only today, it's going to be a series of lectures this semester. So to understand Bhagavad Gita, basically it is the king of knowledge. Bhagavad Gita means it is the king of knowledge. So, yeah, we'll start now, but today our topic is how to control the restless mind. So I wish very good morning for those who joined in a Zoom session also. I hope you are able to hear me well. So, yeah, maybe we can put somebody on unmute or something, we can check with them.
Yeah, this is
able to hear.
okay. So I think if you just stand a little closer, it'll pick up.
Yeah. If you in the Zoom, if you have any problems or question, you can actually call Anu, so he can sit and find out what is the issue. Okay, so this topic is a very interesting topic, and before that, let me introduce myself. As it shows here in the first slide, that I studied my MTech in IIT Bombay exactly 30 years ago. In the year 1991, actually, 91 July, I started there. And so that means I started studying this Bhagavad Gita also 30 years ago. That means like you are students now. So like when I was a student, I was actually, I started this Bhagavad Gita. So this is so much of science. I found it's so much of science. So then I continued along with my studies. So I did my MTech, as I said, I graduated. At the time, it was only 3 semesters. So 92 December itself, it got finished. So then I started my PhD in IIT Madras in the year 1993. So there I started this Bhagavad Gita sessions every week, like what we are trying to start here. So that is still going on. It is 93 now, it's almost 28 years. And most of the time, I'm always in contact with the students who come and attend those sessions from here, because I moved to US 20 years ago, exactly in the year 2001. So, but still on phone and like I'm in regular communication with all the students there. So that way, I'm still feeling myself as a student only, because I'm all the time interacted with generations of students. So even Rohit and Sai, they studied here. So I come here for the last 7-8 years and give this kind of lectures. So that way, even many are there here, they graduated and already left. So that way, this is what I want to emphasize, that I got more experience in doing this, because anything, even if you apply for a job or something, what they look for is the experience, correct? How much experience you have, then it's easy to do. So like that, to give lectures on this Bhagavad Gita as a science, the reason I'm mentioning my degrees and also my work experience also. So I'm working also for the last 25, more than 20 years. Like I started in India and then moved here, and all the time in GE, General Electric. So basically I'm a computational fluid dynamics specialist. So that means I'm using my engineering education fully. I didn't go out of that. And even now I'm in contact with my professors in IIT Madras and all such things. Academically, I'm still very connected. So that way, today's session is going to be highly scientific in nature. Okay, so maybe you may think that, oh, Bhagavad Gita, it is something like religious or philosophical or something not related to science, like that one may think, but that is not the fact. I understand Bhagavad Gita as a science one, because like anything, like you study, I know you are all in different branches of studies. So anything like physics or chemistry or any engineering, like myself, I didn't mention about my engineering. It was a mechanical engineering. I did my mechanical engineering. So anything is a science. That is what this Bhagavad Gita is a science, similar. So take in that way, you will understand, and it is going to help. Our topic today is how to control the restless mind. So what we understand from this topic itself is that our mind is restless. That we know. So mind is restless because Arjuna himself tells Krishna in Bhagavad Gita that mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Those are the properties of mind, which we are going to also look into that. So now the question is here, how to make that mind very peaceful? That is the question. So how to control the restless? So people in this world, especially in this modern world, in the 21st century, our mind is becoming more restless actually. Even if you go back, because you are the generation, I think you can't imagine a life without computer or internet, correct? So, but I am the generation, I have seen both types of life. When during my college days, when I started undergrad, there was no PCs also, no computers, nothing. No internet and all came when I was doing PhD only in IIT Madras. So at that time also, I started working in my PhD research work. It's like it was a combustion, so droplet combustion, so simulation, experiment, everything. So the PC I started with, I was having 8 MB RAM. Just imagine 8 MB RAM only. So now you are talking about only GBs and TBs kind of thing. So that those days, kilobytes and megabytes, even 8 megabytes was such a huge thing when we did. So then internet, without internet, and especially without smartphone. Smartphone is only maybe a decade old feature, correct? It was even in the 2000s, like I think in 2010 plus only it started becoming more popular, and now we can't imagine a life without smartphone, WhatsApp, this messengers, Facebook, all those things. So the life has changed a lot. So what I was trying to say is that our mind is becoming more restless because of all these things, this stress. So we get so much of stress in our life, and we have to get to do so many things in our life in a given time. And how are we going to manage? That is the main. But for me, this knowledge helped me starting from my master, like in IIT Bombay days, even until today, to do all the job very nicely. I didn't deviate, I didn't get out of, people sometimes think that, oh, you talk about Bhagavad Gita, then you will not be, you will become like a sannyasi or you leave everything, not like that. So you will be able to do things very nicely. So that's what it gives you the knowledge. So I'm very much guaranteeing all of you that if you take this path very seriously, you are all going to excel in your studies and your future job opportunity, anything, whatever you do. So it is very much, because that's what I experienced myself, you are also going to experience. So let us now get into this presentation today. I will explain. As I said, it's more like a science only. So, 1 second. Okay. So, elements of material nature. So first, let us look at the material nature. So we need to understand about this well. Because as I mentioned earlier, it's a science. We need to understand what this well is. We understand that this is Earth and this is a solar system in our Earth, and then we have a galaxy, it's a Milky Way galaxy, and there are billions of galaxies also like this. So all those things are material nature. So in this nature, when you go and find out in the space, when you are looking into the space, what you are all seeing, you all see a lot of like earth or earth-like features, or water everywhere, or ice everywhere, or gas and heat, and all those things only everywhere you can see. So that is what is the material nature is actually. So this is earth, water, fire, air, and space. So this is what you are seeing everywhere. Even in this earth also, if you dig into the earth, you will see all those things. Water is there, and fire is there, heat element, and then air, and then space. So these are the five, even as per our modern science also, especially if you look into any basic standard physics or chemistry books, they will say that the history of science, if you study, the first thing is that they divided everything into especially these four elements. And then space is also included it. So totally there are five. These five elements are known as gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. There is Bhumir, Apo, Analo, Vayu. Another thing I just want to inform you right now, I may be using, not I maybe, I definitely will be using a lot of Sanskrit words here, but don't get scared by those words, because when I first started, all those words were like Greek and Latin to me. I couldn't understand anything. So all those things were Greek and Latin to me. So 1 second, I will just give access to. You are also co-host, we can give recording on that. You are able to do that? Okay. Okay, so these are the five elements. So gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And we only know about these things. But above this, mind, intelligence, and false ego, that is known as ahankara, that is also a science which you will be able to understand very clearly when you study this Bhagavad Gita. Because our body is made up of these gross elements, so that is known as gross body. So whatever you are seeing, sensing with our senses, perceiving with our senses, that's all these gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. But these are subtle elements. Mind, intelligence, and false ego are subtle elements, which you cannot see, perceive with our senses. But we always talk about mind. Our topic today is also how to control the restless mind. So how much we know about our mind, what are the properties of our mind, how our mind behaves, and all such things. There is none of the books or college or university, nobody can give any knowledge on this, because it is beyond the perception of our senses. So that is what it is known as subtle elements. So whatever with your senses you can perceive, we understand how our body works and everything. I was mentioning about it. I'm going to use a lot of Sanskrit words, but it was so difficult for me to even pronounce a single word at that time when I first started this. But over a period of time, this has become like very easy for me. So without referring those Sanskrit words in Bhagavad Gita, it's very difficult for me to even explain. So because it is so much of science in it. So mind is mano, and intelligence is buddhi, and false ego is ahankara. You may ask why we call it as false ego. Why we call it as false ego, ahankara. So ego means, generally when we do things, whatever we do, we think that I did it or you did it. That's what we always say. But in reality, as per Bhagavad Gita, no one did it. I didn't do, you didn't do. That is the science we need to understand. So that is done by the three modes of material nature. That itself is a very, very vast science. You can actually produce thousands and thousands of PhDs on that about false ego, ahankara. Because thinking that I am doing it, in reality, I am not. So you're also going to understand today who am I? That is the main question. Am I this earth or water or fire or air or space? Or am I this mind or intelligence or false ego? That question is a very important question. We need to really understand about ourselves. So that's what this series, what we titled as the science of self-realization. So when we finish all those 9 or 10 weeks of this series, I'm going to cover the essence of all the entire Bhagavad Gita. So earlier I used to teach only like few slokas every week when I come here, but this time we decided that we will do the entire Bhagavad Gita in one semester, so you can understand a good knowledge about it, this Bhagavad Gita. So that's going to definitely help you a lot. There is no doubt about it. So that way we are going to focus more on the mind, intelligence, and false ego, everything in the coming weeks actually, because this is today just one day we are talking about the mind, but the entire 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is talking about the mind, Dhyana Yoga. So that is all about our mind. So you are going to get so much of knowledge. So by the time we finish, you will definitely have the very good knowledge. That's what my goal is also, that very good knowledge about everything in this life, everything about our life. Who am I? What is the goal of this life? With this knowledge, when you are able to see this well through the eyes of this Bhagavad Gita, so that is known as Jnana Chakshusha. It is like when you are seeing something under microscope or telescope, you are able to see some things, right? So like that, here you are able to see everything through the eyes of Bhagavad Gita. You will see the world in a totally different way. Different way means in the right way. Otherwise, right now, what we are seeing this world, what we are doing, everything is totally wrong. Because we don't have the knowledge about ourselves, we don't have the knowledge about mind, intelligence, all those things. So this is a great opportunity for me to share my knowledge with you, and it's also a very, very great opportunity for you to get this knowledge, because this is only 1 in 1,000 statistics. In Bhagavad Gita, statistics is also given. So like here, everything we talk in terms of statistics, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 2,000, like that. So in Bhagavad Gita, it says that only 1 in 1,000 will endeavor for perfection. So Manushyanam Sahasresu Kaschit Yadati Siddhi. Only 1 in 1,000 will endeavor for perfection. So you are all that 1 in 1,000. So you know that this message was sent to everyone, but only few of you, only few are here, correct? So that's, I expected this. It is not a surprise to me, because it is going to be like this. I know that very well. So we should not be even thinking that, oh, why not many are here, something like that. We cannot even think. Because only, this is a very, very rare, only 1 in 1,000 will endeavor for perfection. Manushyanam Sahasresu Kaschit Yatati Siddhi. And Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschin Mam Veti Tattva. And those who are endeavoring for perfection, hardly one will know everything in fully. So that's why the 3 modes of material nature, that is known as 3 gunas. So some basic words in Sanskrit, I will explain to you. You can also note it down and understand, because any subject when you study, if you know the basics, then it's easy for you to go further. For example, if you are studying, I'm talking about physics, chemistry like that, because it's common for everyone, correct? Your core curriculum. I don't want to get into like heat transfer or fluid dynamics and things like that, where I'm specialized. Or I'm also specialized. I myself got so much of interest in biology, cell biology, or neuroscience. Even though I'm a mechanical engineer, I understand very well about how our body part works, how we are getting the signals, and how it's getting transmitted to our brain. Everything, all the parts I remember, all the words I know, everything. So, but that's going to be too much. So, okay, 3 modes of material nature is actually that is known as gunas. That is known as 3 gunas. Then time. So the another element of material nature is time. So all these things are part of the material nature. So what we are going to focus today is the mind. So a period of time when you come regularly, you will be focusing on all these things every week when we study. Okay, so now let us understand the relationship between body, mind, sense, intelligence, and soul. So Bhagavad Gita is the king of knowledge, where all these things are given very, very clearly. So what is the relationship between body, mind, senses, intelligence, and soul? We are also going to understand about how many types of senses are there. What are those senses we are going to study and understand. So here, body and senses. Senses are superior to body. We need to understand how senses are superior to body. That's very important. First of all, we need to understand the senses. What are all the types of senses we have? Maybe it's going to come in the next slides, but I will just quickly explain to you. And then when it comes next also, I will explain to you in detail. Okay. So we have 5 knowledge acquiring senses and 5 working senses in our body. So knowledge acquiring senses, that is known as jnanendriyas, and working senses are known as karmendriyas. So what are those jnanendriyas? The sense of seeing, sense of hearing, sense of smelling, sense of touching, and sense of tasting. So these 5 are knowledge acquiring senses. We understand everything about this world with these 5 senses, knowledge acquiring senses. Otherwise, we will not know anything. If a person is blind by birth, you cannot explain to him about the different shapes and colors and things like that. There is no way you can understand. Or if you are deaf by birth, or all such things, so we cannot get any knowledge. And imagine a person, we have not seen such persons, but normally in life itself, it happens when you get into an accident or something, when a person gets into coma stage, or even if suppose a person, let us not go to that level, suppose there is a person who is born, but he is blind, deaf, and he cannot smell, all his senses are not working, for example. So, and not able to taste, not able to do, but body is working very good. Heart is really pumping very nicely, and all the organs, it can still happen, correct? It is still possible. So, but imagine that person's life in this world. He cannot interact with this world at all, correct? He or she, if you are in that kind of situation, then you cannot interact because you cannot see, you cannot hear, you cannot smell, you cannot taste, you cannot touch. So, that is, then what is the use of this body alone? The body can work very well, but that's why senses are superior to body. And what are the 5 working senses? The working senses are your legs, hands, and then your voice, like everything, whatever you are moving. So your tongue, everything is a part of working senses. Your lips, everything, because you are producing voice, correct? So the working senses, and then anus and genital. So when I studied the neuroscience out of interest to connect with this Bhagavad Gita, I understood very perfectly. These 5 knowledge acquiring senses are nothing but the somatosensory system. We have sensory systems, that's what you study. Like we have sense receptors, that is known as somatosensory systems. So from different parts of our body, it all goes to the brain, that is known as afferent. Afferent means to the brain. So in our cortex, in our brain and the cortex, there is like a post-central sulcus. So it is fully, this region is completely somatosensory region. So complete. So all the things goes there. So that is what is the knowledge acquiring senses, nothing else, jnanendriyas. And then before the central sulcus, pre-central sulcus, there is motor nervous system, the cortex. So from there, all the signals will come to the different like hands, legs, lips, and voice, everything. So that is known as motor nervous system. So this motor nervous system is the basically the karmendriyas, and somatosensory system is the other jnanendriyas. So this is a science, correct? That's what we study. Then why not we study the entire Bhagavad Gita, correct? Bhagavad Gita only is talking about the 5 senses. So panchai, there is indriyani dasa ekam cha. So dasa ekam means 11 senses. It includes the mind. Then manas sastani indriyani. So then including the mind, the 6 senses. So it talks about all these senses very nicely. Anyhow, so what we understand right now, we are very clear that senses are superior to body, correct? So that's what in one verse in the 3rd chapter, Lord Sri Krishna says, I believe in this sloka number 41 or 42. So in the 3rd chapter, there is Indriyani Parani Ahu. Indriyani Parani Ahu means senses are superior to dull matter. Indriyani Parani Ahu. Next one, Indriyebhya Param Manah. So mind is higher than the senses. So we have mind, but what if a person whose body is working very well, he has a very perfect fit body, all his glucose levels are very nice, and blood pressure levels are nice, everything is fine, senses are working very sharp, 20/20 eye vision, and you are hearing all frequencies without any issues, and all the test buds are working, everything, senses are working very fine, you are able to do everything. But if that person is a psychiatric patient, mental disorder, right? So mind is not working. So mentally ill, a mentally ill person, even though body works very well. So in fact, mind only causes a lot of health problems. We need to understand this stress. Most of our problems, the physical health problems, what we face in our life is actually starting with our mind only. If you have stress, so there are two types of autonomic nervous system. So autonomic nervous system means it is not in our control. So that is on its own autonomic. That's what autonomous, correct? Autonomic nervous system. So there is one is parasympathetic nervous system, another is sympathetic nervous system. So that sympathetic nervous system is actually when you are under stress, immediately that gets activated. When that gets activated, it stops all, in order to save the resources, it will stop the digestion process and other things, it will increase the heart rate, and it will increase the respiration rate and all such things. That's why when a person is under stress, his heart rate is high and his blood pressure is high, and it's not good for our body if we are always controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. And parasympathetic nervous system is the one which is good for us. So it actually keeps our body, our heart rate and everything normal. So these two are another autonomic nervous system is the enteric nervous system. That controls our guts and everything, all those muscles, all those things. So they are all not under our control. So this motor nervous system is under our control. If I want to move my hand from here to here, I'm just thinking, so from brain, the action is initiated, so then I'm able to move. But these things are all not under our control, but stress induced. So that way, all these problems are caused by the mind. If our mind is peaceful, if we are mentally very stable, very strong, then everything makes sense. So that's why mind is higher than the senses, okay? Mind is higher than the senses. Now we understand how mind is higher than the senses. Mind is above the senses. So there is Indriyani Parani Ahu, Indriyabhya Param Manaha. Manasastu Para Buddhi. So Buddhi means intelligence. So intelligence means you should know what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing you need to do. We cannot do things, everything the way we want. It is not that I want this, I want that, I want to do this, I can do this. We understand that there is the law of karma. So the law of karma is like each and every action has got equal and similar reaction. We know that the Newton's third law of motion, each and every action has got an equal and opposite reaction. Like if you are applying force, there is applying force on you. But the law of karma here is that if you are doing good things, you are going to get good things. If you are doing bad things, you are going to get bad reactions. So that's what is very important. So that way we need to use intelligence. If you are intelligent, that means we are able to understand. First of all, we are able to get one thing we need to understand here. Intelligence means is not that someone who is able to get all A's and very high IQ level. So that is simply not intelligence. Intelligence means able to distinguish between the body and soul. We are going to understand a lot about when we study. I think next week, the second chapter, when we focus very scientifically, Lord Sri Krishna is explaining about the soul. We are not the body, we are the soul. So we are going to study and understand. So that way, intelligence means able to understand that we are not the body, we are the soul, and doing everything good for the soul. What is good for ourselves? What we think is that I want this, I want that, everything. We are thinking that it is good for my body. So, but what is good for myself? So that's what is known as intelligence, buddhi. So intelligence is still higher than the mind. So indriyani parani ahu, indriyebhya param manaha, manasastu para buddhi. Now, yo buddhe paratastu saha. Yo buddhe paratastu saha means soul is even higher than the intelligence. So that's what we need to understand, that we are not the body, we are the soul. People can immediately ask that I don't believe in soul, I don't see soul. You can say, it's just because even I can say that I don't believe in electrons, correct? Nobody has seen electrons. I can say, if I say that, everybody thinks that I'm a fool, correct? Especially myself, did my MTech, PhDs and everything, all those things, everything understood. I understand the molecular structure of everything, even about our biomolecules, how they interact, all kinds of bonds, like ionic bond, covalent bond, metallic bond, all these things you study. And if I simply say that all the SPD, electron configuration, structures, don't think that I'm going too much on science, because it is, we need to understand, it's needed to explain. So that means if I say that I don't believe in, so that means I'm only losing, I'm the loser. So like that, if anybody says that I don't believe in soul, so that means he will be the loser. It's just because whether you believe in or not, science is science. That's what we need to understand. So that we are going to understand scientifically in next session about that we are the soul, we are not the body. Okay, so now I'm going to the next slide. So here what is going to happen is that these slides are going to go a little faster, because I have already explained to you in the previous slide at length what is going to come. But you can just get a full understanding of this. Okay, 10 senses I already told you. So 5 knowledge acquiring senses. So these are known as jnanendriyas. 5 knowledge acquiring senses. So eyes to see, ears to hear, nose to smell, and tongue to taste, skin to touch. You know, these things are all different types of receptors in our body. For example, for eyes, the photons, what we is in our retina, we have got photoreceptors. So from whatever I see, the light is coming. So we know that light is photons, correct? So photons are hitting the retinas. So depending upon that, it has got, we know that it has got wavelength, right? Wavelength, frequency, all such things. So it is certain wavelengths. What wavelengths that photon is coming, according to the retina recognizes it, then it will give it a shape, color, and all those things. So then it goes to the brain. So there is a very complex system inside our eyeball, between the retina and going to the brain. The nervous system is very, very complicated nervous system, but it goes. So that's what they see, sense of seeing. And it goes to our back of the brain. That is known as occipital lobe. So it goes, whatever we see in the front, it goes to the back of the brain. The brain, from the back of the brain, the occipital lobe only, the cortex only senses what we see. Similarly, the ears to hear. Similarly, ear also is a very, very complex system actually. We have outer ear, middle ear, inner ear, all such things. And there is something called vestibular system also, like I'm standing and sensing proprioception. There's a lot of science behind it. And similarly, nose, tongue, they are all chemoreceptors, and the skin also has got mechanoreceptors for touch and all such things. These are all perfect science. So there is jnanendriyas. Okay. So now 5 working senses, karmendriyas. So hands, legs, voice, anus, and genital. So here voice I said in order to produce anything, whatever in our body which we are able to move when we desire, when we want. So that is known as working senses. That is what I mentioned to you, motor nervous system in our body. So in order to produce speech, I need to move everything using my tongue, lips, and chin. Everything I have to move to make the sound. So that's what is the voice. And similarly, the anus and genital is also under our control. We can control. So whatever we can control, so that is what is known as the karmendriyas. Okay. Let me move to the next slide. Okay. So senses are definitely superior to dull matter. Now we have no doubt. We have no doubt that indriyani parani avu, correct? Senses are superior to dull matter. And now mind. How mind is higher than the senses. That's what I mentioned to you. All the 10 senses may work very well, but if the mind is not working, or if one becomes a mental patient, the senses are useless. So then, even if the senses were working very good, you cannot lead a good life. Okay, now what is the nature of our mind? Thought process, thinking, correct? So that is coming from our mind. We need to understand that any action, whatever we do, first its desire comes in our mind to do that. So then only we initiate, then only we use our brain, initiate signal, action potential, travels, and all sorts of things. So the thinking process is very, very important. So what our mind thinks should be under our control. So then only we can control the restless. So that is a very scientific process. If you are able to control them, if you are able to achieve that peace of mind, so then our life will be very, very blissful. We are not disturbed at all. So that way mind thinks, and mind is the processor also, as I mentioned earlier. So our brain simply stores its memory, correct? Memory is like in the computer. The computer, you have your memory is stored. But you have a processor, CPU, correct? You are processing what is there, what data is stored there, correct? So the mind is processing. So the part of the brain that is known as hippocampus, so that's where the long-term memory is stored. So whatever we are memorizing everything, and depending on the situation, when you want to act, immediately it's getting processed. So mind is processing. That's what mind is, the processor. And that's what mind uses the data stored in the brain. And that mind, now, it can be either under our control, that is, our means we are the soul. So it can either be controlled by the senses or the soul. It can be controlled by our senses or by the soul. So we can control the mind, or the senses will control the mind. So that means when you are seeing something, immediately mind goes there. So you are losing your mind. When you are hearing something and your mind goes there, you are losing your mind. So that way, mind is not under our control, not your control. Whenever we see some sense objects or whenever we think something, our mind goes there. Because mind travels very fast, correct? The speed of mind, you can all think wherever you want to go around the globe, you can immediately go there. Very mentally, correct? So then mind goes there. So mind stays there. Mind gets attached to that. When mind goes to those sense objects and gets attached to those sense objects, so then we are losing the mind. It is not in our control. So then what is happening? Then we are getting trouble. Our mind is disturbed. What if that mind didn't do all those things? It was just staying with us, very peaceful. So that is what is known as peace of mind. When controlled by the soul, mind is the best friend. When controlled by the senses, it is the worst enemy. So we already studied in that ladder. So soul is coming above the mind. So the soul should control the mind using the intelligence. That means we should have intelligence. If we don't have intelligence, we cannot control mind, correct? I already explained to you, intelligence is not something like that you can solve complex mathematical problems quickly. That's not intelligence. Intelligence means knowing this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita as the science and able to differentiate between the body and soul and doing things which are good for ourselves. So that is what is called intelligence. Either have intelligence or we will not have intelligence. we can lose intelligence. So if we don't have intelligence, then there is no way we can control our mind. But if we have intelligence, then we can control our mind using intelligence, the soul. So that's why how we are going to lose intelligence? In one sloka, Krishna is saying, Indriyanam ki charatam. The senses are roaming. Indriyanam ki charatam. Yanmanonu vidiyade. If our mind focuses on those roaming senses, tatasya harati pragma mayu nava mivambasa, then it's going to carry away our intelligence. We are going to lose intelligence. Like a boat on your water is swept away by a strong wind. So if strong wind is there, boat is going here and there. So like that, if our mind is focusing on the sense objects, then we are going to lose intelligence. So that's why we need to understand that while contemplating the objects of senses, a person develops attachment for them. So the attachment comes when the mind thinks about sense objects. As I explained to you in the beginning, it's going to be very scientific, right? Full of science. So when you think about something, sense object, it can be anything regarding our five senses, whatever sense object. Then mind is going to develop attachment for them. From such attachment, strong desire to enjoy that sense object develops. So dhyayato vishayan pumsaga sangas tesu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama. Then from that desire, strong desire, krodot, there is anger develops. Sangat sanjayate kama, kamat krodo abhijayate. Krodo means anger comes. That's why anytime if anyone is angry on something, we can easily find out why he is angry. Because he has some attachment on something, correct? If you don't have attachment on anything, you will not be angry at all. So from krodat bhavati sammohaga, sammohat smriti vibrama. From anger, sammohaga. So bewilderment. So when memory is bewildered, confusion. So then memory is bewildered, smriti vibramaga, smriti pramshat buddhinasu, buddhinasat pranashyati. So then we will lose our intelligence. That's what buddhinasa. Buddhinasa means your intelligence is lost. So that's what is happening. The main problem now you understand where it started. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaga. When our mind thinks about the sense objects. If our mind didn't think about the sense objects, all these things is not going to happen. So that's where the problem lies. We get ourselves attached, then it's a problem. Then we lose intelligence. So when controlled by the senses, it is the worst enemy. Mind is our worst enemy. Peaceful mind brings happiness. Disturbed mind brings distress. So that's what this slide shows. So if you are peaceful, you are happy. If you are disturbed, you are not happy. That's it. Happiness is simply defined by the status of mind, nothing else. It is not that I become a billionaire, I will be happy. You can become a billionaire, or you can become a trillionaire. But if your mind is not peaceful, you are not going to be happy. Or you can be a beggar, but if your mind is peaceful, you will be very happy. So happiness is simply it's the status of mind. So we need to understand that our mind is peaceful. We need to keep our mind peaceful, then we are happy. But that doesn't mean that we will become beggars. We will, the Bhagavad Gita, the beauty of Bhagavad Gita is actually, if you take this path very seriously, you are not going to lose anything. But the gain is much, much bigger. So, neha bikrama nasosti pratyavayu na vidyate. Swalpam apiyasya dharmasya trayati mautava. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. Even a little advancement in this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. One thing I forgot to mention, actually, I'm giving these lectures every day. In fact, 2 times, morning and evening. And evening, 9 p.m. to almost it goes to 11 p.m. every day. Imagine every day, except Sunday. Sunday only I was free, but now our Sunday is also engaged. So we are having our program every Sunday here, correct? So I live in Houston, Sugarland. So I have to come here also. So that way, what I'm trying to say is that there's so many people around the world, they are joining every day. So I give this lecture only for 30 minutes, but there is question and answer session for almost 1.5 hours. So 9 p.m. I start and 11 p.m. only times every day on Zoom. You can also join that. You can share your contact with me. I can add you in the WhatsApp group. We have about 20 WhatsApp groups now. Like each one 250 people are there. But in that lecture, at least 50, 60 people are joining every day around the world, all parts of India, and then US and Canada, Singapore, like that. And in the morning time also I give, there is in the evening in India, there is in my native language, it is in Tamil. So the reason I understand Sanskrit very well also because I find more words are very similar what I use in Tamil also. Okay, so that way the mind, when you are engaging yourself more in this knowledge and doing everything, you are going to get very happy. That's it, mind. And we are not going to lose anything. Okay, mind is the source of happiness and distress. Being an engineer, so we always try to draw graphs. So here I just put a very simple graph, like as a function of the peace of mind. So when the peace of mind increases, your happiness increases. When you have 100% peace of mind, you are fully happy. And at the same time, your distress decreases. When your peace of mind increases, your distress decreases. And 100% peace of mind, there is zero distress. You are not distressed at all. So that's it. Simply peace of mind and distress. Okay, properties of mind. So mind is, Arjuna is asking Krishna that Chanchalam ki mana Krishna pramadi palavatritam tasyagam nigraham manye vayuriva sudustam. So mind is Chanchalam. Chanchalam means it is restless, flickering. So it doesn't stay in one place all the time. It keeps going here and there, very fast. And our goal is to keep it in one place. So that's what, then only we can say we can control the mind. Our mind should be under our control, means it should not be going here and there. So there is a scientific process to do that. Very scientific process. So if you do that, it won't go. Then it's pramadi. So it is turbulent, agitating. It gets agitated, turbulent. And then balavat. So balavat means it's very strong. You know, many times mind only wins, correct? When you want to do something, your inner sense says that don't do that, but still you do that. So because mind is very strong, it's balavat. It's very obstinate. It's dhritam. Dhritam means it's very obstinate. It's very determined. So then balavat, dhritam, that very strong and obstinate mind, if we make it as our friend, how nice our life will be, correct? It's very strong, very powerful, and it's very obstinate. If it is our friend, if it just listens to us, then it is our life is so good. But otherwise, if it is our enemy, imagine our problem. So, for a person who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the worst enemy. That is the law of mind. Bandhuratma atmanastasya yenatmaiva atmanajitaga anatmanastu satrute vartetatmaiva satru. Bandhur and satru. Okay, now intelligence. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, which we already know. I'm just going through quickly here. So intelligence guides the mind, tells what is right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad. But mind should listen to the intelligence and act. If mind listens to the intelligence and act, so then we do things in the right way. That means we should have the knowledge of this Bhagavad Gita. If you don't have this knowledge, then we cannot do things in the right way. This Bhagavad Gita is known as Dharma. It is a science. So it is what is right, what is wrong. It's teaching us very, very clearly. So that way, if we have this knowledge, so then we will be doing things in the right way. So body, senses, and mind are useless without intelligence. So ignorance is dangerous, knowledge is blissful. So, but intelligence is needed to use the knowledge. Okay, soul is even higher than the intelligence. We already studied about that. So soul should control the mind with the help of intelligence. Otherwise, mind will control the soul. So that's what. If mind is getting controlled by the senses, then mind will become our enemy, then mind will control the soul if we don't control the mind and keep it as our friend. So otherwise, mind will become our enemy and creates all kinds of problems in our life. Once the mind is controlled, soul will be able to control the senses, otherwise senses will control the mind. So the first thing is that we need to control the mind. If we control the mind, then we can control our senses. If we don't control the mind, then the senses will control the mind. That's what we already discussed. So mind is the source of happiness and distress, but happiness and distress are experienced by the soul. So better to control the mind to be happy all the time, otherwise we will suffer when the mind brings distress. Okay, this picture explains what all I just explained about body, mind, senses, soul, intelligence. So this chariot is our body. Our body is this chariot. And the passenger sitting on the chariot is the soul. So there is Atma, our self. And these 5 senses are the 5 horses. And then the intelligence is the driver of the chariot. And the mind is the controlling instrument, basically the rope used to control the senses. So that's what our body is. So this is from Kathopanishad. It is given in one of the Upanishad. So now our intelligence should control the senses with using the mind. If we lose intelligence, we discussed about losing intelligence. That means we don't have the driver. So then that mind will be under whose control? If we have the intelligence, then mind will be under the control of ourselves. Correct? Intelligence listens to the soul, passenger will be going. If we lose the intelligence, nasti buddhi. Nasti buddhi means buddhi is lost, intelligence is lost. Then mind will be under the control of the senses. Correct? So then we are going to be under trouble. Then what happens if all the 5 horses, 5 senses, they decide to take control and each one wants to go in different directions? So then where is the chariot is going to go? So that's why buddhinasa, pranashyati. Pranashyati means we are lost, we are destroyed. So that's what happens. Okay. So now some slokas directly from Bhagavad Gita I am putting here. So this sloka says that Yatato hyapi kaunteya purusasya vipaschitaga indriyani pramatini haranti prashabam mana. So the senses are so strong and impetuous that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Even someone who has the knowledge, who is trying to control. So even for him, it is so difficult because the senses are very strong and impetuous that they forcibly carry away the mind. So it's not an easy task. Because Arjuna himself asked Krishna that, I don't think I can control my mind. He told directly, it's so difficult. I can even control the hurricane, wind. So Krishna also agreed, it is difficult. Undoubtedly, it's difficult to control the mind. But if with suitable practice and detachment, it is possible. So that's why the next sloka, which I already explained, as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. That's what Indriyanam ki charatam yanmanonu vidiyade tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavam ivamas. One who is able to withdraw his senses from the sense objects as the tortoise withdraws, it's not draws, it draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. So that is Kurma Anganiva Sarvasga. Yada Samharate Chayam Kurma Anganiva Sarvasga. Indriyani Indriyartebhya Tasya Prajna Pratisthita. So that's what. We should be, the senses should be under our control. Now, peace of mind, how to achieve it? A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. That is Apuryamanam Achara Pradishtam Samudram. Samudram means the ocean. the ocean which is being filled with water by rivers flowing from all directions, entering from all directions, still it is always same. Its level is always same. Like that, many desires are entering into our mind. Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve, sa shanti maapnoti na kama kam. So desires are entering into our mind from all directions, but one who is not disturbed by those desires only can achieve peace of mind. So that's what is the peace of mind. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. So the real peace is actually, we should not be attached to anything in this material world. One may ask then, oh, how is it possible? It's very difficult. How can I do that? I can't give up all these attachments like that. We can say, but we are not going to be happy. Then we need to understand. Our mind is not going to be peaceful. But it's not very difficult to give up. In fact, when our mind is peaceful, that enjoyment, that happiness is unlimited. There is sukham akshayam ashtam. The so-called sense enjoyment, what we are getting in this material world, it gives, we think that it's happy, it's actually, it brings us happiness, but it is actually the source of our distress. That's what we need to understand. Yegi samsparsya bhoga dukkha yoniye evade. So whatever the bhoga, whatever the sense enjoyment in this material world we are trying to achieve, that is ultimately becoming the source of our distress. Dukkha yoniye evade. Adi anta anta kaunteya. They have got beginning and end. Adi and anta. So it has got beginning and end. So we should be intelligent enough to seek the higher pleasure, the permanent happiness. That's what we want. We want to be permanently blissful. All the time we want to be happy. It is not a momentary, flickering happiness that's going to be, that doesn't mean that we will not taste great food, we will not enjoy, not like that. Yeah, of course. In fact, with the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, one can definitely eat very healthy food, very tasty food. I'm talking just in terms of enjoying, correct? Like the prasadam. So we are going to study the food in the mode of goodness. I mentioned to you about the three modes of nature. The food in the mode of goodness increases the duration of life, purifies one's existence, and gives strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. So those things are all we are going to study. Okay, how to control the restless mind. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So that means all our activities should be under control, regulated. That is known as yukta. If we are not able to regulate, then we are not going to be happy. Yoga means when we are not disturbed by the results. So that is what is called the status of yoga. So the word yukta. Yukta means, normally generally yoga means we think that performing some body postures, exercises, that is what is yoga. That is just a very small part of the yoga. The real actual meaning of yoga means siddhi asiddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So siddhi means success, asiddhi means failure. One who is equal in both success and failure, so then he is a yoga, he has achieved yoga, he is a yogi. So yukta means you are able to regulate. One should be able to regulate the eating, regulate the sleeping, regulate the other work activities. So then we can free from all miseries. So yuktahara viharasya yukta chestasya karmasu yukta swapnavabodasya yogo bhavati dukkha. So yukta means dukkha will be gone. Dukkha is distress if you are able to regulate. So in one shloka, Krishna is saying very clearly that na ati asnatasti yogosti, na chaikantam anasnataga, na cha ati swapna silasya, jagrato naiva cha arjuna. So na ati asna means eating too much. Ati asnatasti yogosti. So there is no yoga. If one eats too much, then he cannot achieve, become a yogi. Now ati asnatasti yoga. Na chaikantam anasnataga. Ati asna means eating too much. Anasnataga means eating too little. Then also one cannot become a yogi. Nacha ati swapna silasya. Ati swapna means sleeping too much. Jagrata means sleeping little. So all these things, eventually with this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, we can keep our life under our control. Like we can control our eating, sleeping, and all the activities. So that way we can. So that's why Lord Sri Krishna said, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and detachment. That's what. There is asamsayam mahabahu manodur nigraham cha abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyati. So what is that practice? What is that practice? By suitable practice and by detachment. What is that practice? That practice is that from wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature. We know the nature of mind. It's flickering and it's unsteady. It's wandering here and there. From wherever it goes, one must withdraw it, certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So that practice we should do daily basis, on a daily basis, like exercise. We do exercise for the body. When every day you run, every day you are very active, it's very good for your health, correct? Your heart is very trained. You will not have any health issues if you are able to do exercise for the body. Similarly, if you do exercise for the mind, every day, this is not every day if you are doing that exercise, so then mind is not going to wander here and there. So that's why yatho nischalati manas chanchalam astiram. So astira means it's unsteady. Chanchalam means it is restless. The mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature. One must withdraw it from there. Tatas tatho niyam etat atmanyeva vasamnayet. Bring it back under the control of the self. So for there is one mantra is there. The meaning of mantra means releasing our mind. So in Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter, when we study a few weeks from now, I'm going to explain that to you in detail. The 6th chapter itself is Dhyana Yoga, how to control the mind. So Lord Sri Krishna is teaching that very clearly what to do, how to sit straight, don't look at any other directions, all those things. But that mantra is actually, when we chant that mantra, when we recite that mantra, we need to focus our mind on the sound vibration. So that means all other senses are controlled. We are not focusing on anything and simply focus our mind on that sound vibration. If you are able to do that every day, then you will see over a period of time, your mind is not going anywhere. Your mind is with you. Your mind is under our control. It's a very scientific process. There is chanting, it is known as Hare Krishna Mahamantra. If you do that, there is a process, scientific process to control the mind. So when you do that, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when you do that, your mind should focus on that sound vibration, not on anything else, that sound. So when we talk about the soul, when we realize, understand that we are not the body, we are the soul, we also have to talk about the God, correct? So that is also a part of this science, because this Bhagavad Gita, this knowledge itself, when you study and understand, you will realize very well, understand scientifically that there is God in control. This while everything is working under designs, under directions. So it is not simply happening that Earth is rotating itself and it's going around the sun and we are getting day and night and the seasons are coming and the light is coming. All those things, it's all by design. So there is a design means there is a designer, there is a God in control. So we need to bring that God into picture and we need to realize that we are the soul and that God is the super soul. So then we will understand all these things perfectly. Okay, now let us come to the summary part here. So senses are superior to dull matter. We understood very well. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. Soul is even higher than the intelligence. We know that. So we understand about the body, senses, mind, intelligence, and soul. Indriyani parani agu, indriyebhya param managa, manasastu para buddhi, yobuddhe paratastu sa. So intelligence should control the mind and senses. But if senses take control of the mind, then intelligence is lost. Mind is the source of happiness and distress. Peaceful mind is happy, restless mind is distressed. Mind can be our friend or enemy depending upon whether we control our mind or our mind controls us. So suitable practice with detachment is the only way to control the obstinate mind. That is the only way. There is simply no other way. We need to understand it very clearly. There may be different philosophers, different movements, different type of things they can talk and do all kinds of things. But here we just have to follow this Bhagavad Gita. So that is, I think that Sai Group can bring that book. Right? So that is just, it has got 18 chapters and 700 verses. So it's there in online also, vedabase.io, VBA is vedabase.io, VBABASC.io. There online itself, you can also get it, but otherwise this small book, which has got only 18 chapters and 700 verses. See, I treat this as the science only, not treating. It is in reality, this is the science, and it is a king of knowledge. It is the Raja Vidya, that's what it says. So this suitable practice, so that's what the king of knowledge. Bhagavad Gita is the shining lamp of knowledge which destroys the darkness of ignorance. So ignorance is darkness and light, this knowledge is light. So Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad Gita that Tesam evanukam partha aham ajnanajam tamaga nasayami atma bhavastu jnana deepena bhasvat. So jnana deepa means the lamp of knowledge. So Bhagavad Gita is the king of knowledge, Raja Vidya, most confidential knowledge, Raja Guhyam, purest knowledge, Pavitram, everlasting knowledge, Avyayam, knowledge which gives direct perception of the self, Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dharma, and knowledge which is joyfully performed, Susukam Kartum, Susukam Kartum. So that's why Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram, Idam, Uttamam, Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dharma, Susukam Kartum, Avyayam. So this is the knowledge if we don't have, that means we don't even know about ourselves. We don't even know about ourselves. We know about a lot of other things in this world. In this world material, we know different things, we study a lot of things. But what is the use of all this knowledge if we don't even know about ourselves? Birth, old age, disease, and death. This is one who understands that these are our real problems. He is knowledge. That's what Bhagavad Gita says. That is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Janma is birth, Mrityu, death, Jara, old age, Vyadhi, disease. These are our real problems. So when death comes, whatever we achieve in this material world, materialistically speaking, everything we are going to lose. So ultimately, everyone is the loser. Everyone. One can become a billionaire or become a very powerful person or whatever it is. But when that person goes to the deathbed, when that person dies, everything is gone. Whatever we achieve in this world. But if we have this Bhagavad Gita knowledge, if we realize ourselves that we are not the body, we are the soul, and if we take care of ourselves, if we utilize all the resources, opportunities, and everything to do good things for ourselves, the soul, then at the time of death, our progress will be much higher. So whatever gain we get in this regard, we are not going to lose at the time of death. That's what we need to understand. So it's going to be with us. So we are going to study because there is something called law of birth and death. There is a person, Jatasya Durvam Mrityu, Durvam Janma Mritasya. So when a person is born, is sure to die. We know that. Similarly, when a person dies, is sure to born again. It's as sure as death. We heard about it. So similarly, birth is as sure as birth. So now, actually, I wish to thank Lord Sri Krishna for giving this Bhagavad Gita to this world and acknowledge Srila Prabhupada for his book Bhagavad Gita as it is. So without this Bhagavad Gita as it is, it's impossible for me to prepare and deliver this presentation. And when you understand this entire Bhagavad Gita, it is going to be a great asset in our life. And also I wish to thank Anu and the Hindu Students Association and everyone and the current Prabhu, Rohit Prabhu, everyone to organize this series because we are very, as I mentioned, if we take, I don't expect that we are going to become a lot of members attending, but still I'm sure it's going to increase more strength and we will have, because I have the experience in IIT Madras when I started this kind of session in the year 1993, July, when I was first started my PhD. So I was the only person just started this, and I was thinking that if some more people help students join and help me, it will be good. But by the next year, you don't believe, we were about 25, 30 students actually. We were a very big team at that time. We did a lot of wonderful things. That life with that kind of association helped a lot actually for our studies and everything. So that way, I hope to see you all every week, and then we can grow more. And you can share your contacts also. I can add you to this WhatsApp group where this Zoom link also I can share with you. So I am just pasting here. So Bhagavad Gita, the King of Knowledge. So Tuesday to Sunday morning IST. Actually, I'm starting around 7:30 a.m. Not 7:15 now. 7:30 I'm starting. So every day, if you are able to join this also, it's good. But it depends. I know because of this semester and like it's work and all those things, it may not be possible every day. You can. There is a YouTube channel also. If you are in the WhatsApp group, that YouTube recordings also will be uploaded every day. You can follow through that whenever you find time also. So that way, this is apart from our weekly what we are trying to do. This will help you more if you are interested in joining actually in this. So thank you again to all of you for giving me this great opportunity, and I look forward to see you all every week and answering your questions, and we can grow more. And I think we will eventually put it in a structure where maybe I will give lecture for about 45 minutes or 1 hour, and then we will have a question answer, things like that. So now I just open it for any question answer sessions if anyone has got any questions. Maybe here or on Zoom, the participants on Zoom also. I don't think a lot are on Zoom already. Maybe they left just. So anyone has got any questions, or you want to share something, or anything you want to say about yourselves? Maybe let's introduce. At least you can mention. Maybe you can introduce. Just for me to know about you a little bit. So what's your good name?
My name is Alec, and I'm a first year grad student in aerospace.
Oh, okay. So you're a freshman?
Grad student.